Hey, welcome back to the Bootstrap 4 Alpha tutorial. My name is Brad Hussey from bradhussey.ca and codecollege.ca. In this video, we're going to be coding up the About section here, the latest news section featuring the Bootstrap 4 card masonry layout, and we'll just finish up with the footer. Now, the first thing that I want to do is, in our site that we're building so far, you can see that we don't really have much padding around this section as we do in the final version of the site right here. And what I want to do is I just want to give a little bit of padding to the section content class that we added in our code. So in our index here, you'll see, you might remember that we actually added a div with the class of section content. And that's simply so that I can add some padding there. And roughly there in the final site, there's about 80 pixels of padding. But because we're using Bootstrap 4, they tend to use, or they actually prefer to use, REMS now, REM, as the unit of measurement for your CSS. So we're going to jump into our styles, and we're going to do that. And after cover caption here, I'm going to add a class section content. We're just going to select that class, and we're going to give some padding. Now I want the padding on the top and the bottom. Now I want it to be exactly 80 pixels on the top and bottom. So we can do something like this, really straightforward, 80 pixels, top and bottom, 0 on the left and right, but I want to use REMS. Now, if you know what REMS are, then great. If you don't, basically a REM is relative to the root, so that's what the R stands for, of the document. Now the root is the HTML tag and whatever its font size is. So we didn't declare a font size here, but because we're using Bootstrap, their new default font size, I believe, is 16 pixels. It might be 18 pixels, but I believe it is 16. And basically, one rem is equal to 16 pixels. Or if this was 22 pixels, if the HTML tag had 22 pixel font size, one rem would be 22 pixels. And that rem is going to be the same unit all across the board. So you could be nested 18 layers deep. And if you said 1 rem or 2 rems or 3.4 rems, it will still be referencing the HTML font size, so the root font size. Whereas with an M, it's always referencing the parent. So if you have section content and say section content had the font size of 16, and then you had section content and then section content wrapper or something within this, and you wanted to say 1M, then you'd be referencing the font size of the section content, not the actual HTML. So that's what's cool about REMS, is that you can actually reference the root and then can have a bit more of a uniform and consistent font size or unit of measurement throughout the entire document. Now that I'm done my tangent, basically, if we're assuming that the HTML is 16 pixels font size, from what I can recall properly, then 16 goes into 80 5 times. 5 rem on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right, and that should be correct. That's roughly 80 pixels. And so there you go. That's how we're going to be doing that. So that's all we need to do there. Now, the next part we need to do is our About section. So let's jump back here into our HTML. And we're going to code that About section. And this is going to be custom coded. We're not really using much Bootstrap other than a grid. So we're just going to add the section with the ID of About. Within there, we're going to have a class with the ID or class of section content. And then a child element of that, we're going to have a container, class of container. And a child element of that is going to be the class of call-md for medium-6. And then I'm going to tab that out, and that's what that's going to look like so far. Within there, I'm going to have a div with the class of about-text. And then in there, a level 3 heading, about me. And then a paragraph with the class of lead, some lorem ipsum, whoops. And then after our paragraph here, I'm going to add another paragraph, just a plain one with more lorem ipsum. And then following that, a level 5 heading, follow me on the web. And we're going to use some Bootstrap buttons here. And I'll show you a really cool thing about Emmet again, how we can kind of make this a bit more efficient. Rather than coding out 3 separate A tags that are all kind of the same, I'm going to say A with the class of BTN and the class of BTN-SM and the class of BTN-secondary-outline. and times 3. So I already have this skeleton kind of markup ready for me to go. And then I'm just going to add the text. This one's just going to say Twitter. This one will be Facebook. And this one will be YouTube. And if you want to link those up somewhere, then you can do that. And that would be the markup for the About section. Now, if I save this, it's not going to look like much. It's going to be using our grid over here, but we need to have an image and just a little background, sort of like a transparent kind of black container. So let's go ahead and go to our CSS, and we're going to style up that About section. So below our section content, I'm going to select About, and then I'm going to say background. I'm going to go URL, and this will be image girlincar.jpg. I'm going to center the background position, and no repeat for the background repeat. Background size will be cover. I will save that. And then below here, I'm going to select the About text. And now I can be very specific and say About text, but I don't necessarily need to, because About text is still pretty specific, that class. So I'm just going to do this. Background will be RGBA 000. This will be black. And then another comma. This will be the alpha channel 0.8, which is 80%. So it'll be 80% transparent. And so it'll be a little bit see-through. The color will be white. And the padding, I can do 30 pixels, but I want to use REMS. So 16 goes into 30 almost a couple times. So we'll just say, we can go like this. Why don't we find out 30 divided by 16, 1.875. Let's say 1.875 rem. Now save, and let's see what it looks like. There it is, just like that. No problem at all, super quick. Looks like the one that we have here. And then you have your buttons here, the outline buttons. And if you wanted to, you can add the logos instead. You can feel free to do that. Now the next part we're going to do is we're going to add that masonry style latest news sort of card layout. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our markup here in our HTML, and we're going to add a container. So it will be section with the ID of news. And then within there, I'm going to add another div with the class of section-content. And that is to get that, that padding that we added just a little bit at the beginning of this video. And then a container. Now within here, I'm going to add a level 3 heading that says latest news, paragraph with the class of lead, just some lorem ipsum text, and then a horizontal rule. Now a little bit more here, markups. We're going to add a row, and then within that row, we're going to have a div with the class of call-sm-12. And now in here is where we're going to add that card column sort of masonry style layout. So we're just going to head straight over to the Bootstrap docs site, and we're going to grab the markup that they give us for that masonry style layout. So I'm under cards here under the components section of the site. And I believe down here at the very bottom, we have our card columns. Now, the way that you achieve this layout is using the class, the wrapper class card-columns, and then you add your cards. That's literally it. And then it will just modify kind of the layout to use a card column layout. So we're just going to copy this, and we're just going to play around with what they already give us. Now I'm going to paste right in here. Now they're going to give me that sort of their own spaced layout. I'm going to clean this up a little bit so it's tabbed properly so it matches my code. Okay, and here we go. So we've got our card columns here. So you pasted it in there. If you wanted to space it out properly using your own tabbing convention, good enough. But here we are in card columns, and I'm going to save this. And it's going to be a little messy at first, I believe, but we'll see what it looks like in our demo site here. So you can see it's already maintained that specific layout. So there's not much we have to do other than add some images. And if you wanted to change a couple colors or do whatever, play around with the cards yourself using the different card options, cool. But I'm just going to add some images here and change a couple things so it matches kind of what we have here. Let's go back to our HTML, and none of them have images. So we're going to start off with this one having an image. So I'm going to remove data, just so it's source, and we're going to be image/woman-camera JPG. The alt text card image cap doesn't really make sense. So I'm going to say woman with a camera. And then I will save. I save often. I suggest you do the same. And let's just see what we got. Let's just see what that did. Obviously, it's just going to give us an image. Great. And now let's go here. What is it that we need to do? The other thing that's different is this one has a big image here. So we're going to add that image there. We want to change this image to something and change this color. So we're going to change this. That is the third card, I believe. So we're going to go in and try and find that card. A lot of markup here. It's card blocks. So we have another card here with it, data. So that's the third card in. We're going to change this to image / stars.jpg. And this will just say landscape photography of stars. I don't know if that'd be considered landscape. There is a mountain as well. Save. And let's see if we're getting that image properly. Great. The next thing we want to do is add another image here. That would be the 6th card in. You can see this one just has class of card image. So this is just a basic card with only an image in it. So you can see these are all cards and they're just being used a little bit differently. So that's why they give you this example. And this will be computer.jpg. And this will just change the alt text to desktop with a computer on it. And then save. And now the other thing we're going to do is that last card there. It was the card with the quote, I believe. The block quote right here. So you can add a block quote within the card. And you can see the markup that they use is block quote, class of card block quote, so that it would achieve that style. It has a paragraph with the block quote and then a footer in the block quote with small tag with just kind of the cited source. And we're going to change a couple things here. So card block, text, extra small right. This is basically aligning it right. It's going to be a card block. We're also going to add card-warning and then save that. And that should change the color. Let's see what it does. Changes the color. Now I want the text color to be lighter. I don't like the black on the gold kind of yellow color there. So all you need to do there is add card-inverse. And that will invert the font color. There we go. And that's the masonry layout right there. Now the last thing I did on the demo site here was I added a little pagination nav here. And that's very simple. In the Bootstrap documentation here, you could find it under pagination in components. And the default pagination looks like this. There are a few different things that you could do. The markup's pretty straightforward. You can disable and activate certain states. So if you wanted to say disabled on one of them, it would give you this little cursor so you can't click back if there is no previous item. You can have it look like this. You can have it be very large, very small. If you like the more refined look, you can have a little pager, previous and next. You can align the links on the far left and the far right using very simple classes, so you don't have to do a lot of CSS. And so yeah, there's a lot that you can do with the pagination. I'm just going to grab the basic default pagination markup here. Just going to copy that, and you really don't need to do much. I just wanted it in there, and that's what's cool about Bootstrap. If you wanted to use a component, you could just copy and paste it in, hook it into your website, and you're pretty much be good to go, unless you wanted to do further customization. Okay, so now I want to add that pagination outside of our card block. So I want to make sure that I am outside of all the card columns here. Right there. Horizontal rule, and then I'm going to paste that in there. I'm obviously going to clean this up so it doesn't look so messy. And so here we have it. We have a nav. That's an HTML5 tag with an unordered list. The class of pagination gets you those styles. And then we have a bunch of LIs, and they're a little bit different. So if you want the page item with the little arrow, you'll have an A with the class of page link. And then you'll have a couple span tags with the left arrow quote and a screen reader text that says previous. And then we just have a number of page items if you wanted the page link. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this example. The href would actually be a link if you were hooking it up to something dynamic to go through to the different pages. And then we have the final page item, which is a page link that navigates you next. In theory, it doesn't actually do anything right now because it's just static. So save that and we'll see what it looks like. And here we have it right here, but I want it to be centered in the middle because that doesn't actually look very good over there. It kind of is a little just off-putting. So let's go back, and you can add a very easy Bootstrap class. So you don't have to actually go in and add an extra style just for this. You could just quickly say something like class text -xs, which is extra small center. And what this means is you can actually, that's what's another cool new Bootstrap 4 class, a utility class, is if I wanted to center the text. Before, in Bootstrap 3, you just say text center, and the text would always be in the center no matter the screen size. But what if you only wanted the text to be in the center on mobile devices? Or what if you wanted the text to be in the center only on large devices, and on mobile devices you wanted to go back to align left or align right, whatever the default is? Well, then you could change that. Text medium, so it would only be text medium and up. The screen size medium and up would only be centered, or the screen size LG for large and up would be centered, and large and below or medium and below wouldn't be centered. But I want it to be XX, which means pretty much all the screens, this will be centered. So save that, and that should work. And there it is. Now the last thing on our list here is just to add our footer. It's very basic. Let's jump into our code editor again. Add that markup. Before we wrap up this first project, we're going to add a footer with the ID of footer-main. And then we're going to have a div with the class of container. In there, we're going to have a div with the class of row. Under that, a div with the class of call-sm-3. And we're going to have 4 of those so that we can have 12 columns times 4. Look at that. Nice and straightforward. It's all ready for me to start coding. So that's what's really cool about Emmet. And if I haven't convinced you enough with Emmet, you're probably still typing this out. So go use brackets, install Emmet. It's all free, and you'll be up to speed, and you'll be able to code a lot faster. So in the first one here, I'm just going to have a paragraph tag with the class of uncopyright 2015. Do what you want. So if you want to use this kind of dummy layout that I created, and you wanted to kind of modify it for your own purposes, for your own portfolio or your own sample site or school project or whatever, you're free to do that. It is a Bootstrap site, so I don't own this code. You're allowed to use their code for whatever you want, for commercial purposes, for personal purposes, and I'm not claiming ownership of this specific layout. So if you want to use it, by all means, you can do what you wish with it, as long as it's ethical. And we're going to have an A tag here. And I'm going to link this to my website, bradhussey.ca, and coded by Brad. You could put yours if you want. And then under here, we're going to have a UL with the class of list-unstyled. List-unstyled. We're going to have some list items in here with some A tags. So we want 4 list items. So I'm going to go li times 4. And then in those list items, an A tag. Home. This next one will just say what we do, about, and latest news. Now remember, this is all just kind of dummy content. This doesn't go anywhere, but just gives you a structure to show you kind of what a modern sort of Bootstrap site would look like. UL, we're going to do the same thing. Class list-unstyled. In there, we're going to have a list, 4 list items that have children that are just A tags. Look at that. So great. I love coding like that. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And then the last, we're just going to have a little bit of text here. This is going to be a level 6 heading, a tiny header, and then a paragraph tag with, you guessed it, lorem ipsum. Save that, and let's see what we got. We might need to do a little bit of styling here on the footer. So we have the layout, but it doesn't look like a footer. It just kind of looks like a bit of a weird kind of mess. So go back to our code editor, and in our style sheet, we're just going to do some very basic styling here. We're going to say footer-main. The background, we'll make that 222. The color will be white. Font size 0.8 rem. And padding, something like 40 pixels. And 16, which is the root font size, divided by 16 would be 2.5. So we're looking for 2.5 rem on the top and bottom, and 0 on the left and right. Save that, and we'll have a little look, see what that looks like. Perfect. Just like that. We have a nice footer stuck to the bottom like that. It's all responsive. Nice basic grid. We have our masonry layout. We have our about section. We have some more cards here using the card group. We have a Bootstrap for carousel, our navigation menu, and our cover. So that's it for project 1, the coding a basic Bootstrap 4 website. Up next, we're going to be using a Bootstrap template to get us up and running even quicker if you wanted to do something like that. So I'll show you how to do that in the next section. See you there.